Hey guys, this is going to be the first of a few tutorials that I'm going to have for beginning Blender. Hopefully by the end of these, or this series, you'll be able to create something pretty cool and submit it to the website. And if you're not familiar with that website already, it's at Tomsdeveloperblog.com. Submit your work there whenever you can. But anyways, let's go and dive right into it. I'm going to assume that you've already installed Blender. I'm quite sure you don't need a tutorial for that, so just run it for me. And you should already be greeted by a cube. Now, a cube is a pretty easy object to work with, but let's say if you don't want to work with that cube, you could just delete it. Now, to delete an object, just click the delete key on your keyboard, and then click the delete option in that menu that comes up. It's just a confirmation. Now, at the very top left, you should have a bunch of add buttons. And scroll down and you'll be able to see all the objects that you'll be able to add, and they're quite self-explanatory, so I don't really want to get too much into it. You really explore it and you see what you can do with it, but for now, for the sake of our tutorial, let's add the cube back in. No, you know what, let's add a cylinder just so it doesn't look similar if we need to do anything funny with it. Now you'll notice that the cylinder spawned, for lack of a better term, at a different spot from the center of the pane. This is because I selected a different origin point, and you'll see that I'll be able to select or I can move this around by clicking on the pane, and that's handy. But keep in mind that you are in a 3D world, so if you click somewhere, even though it looks like it's the spot that you want it in that view, if you change the view a bit, you'll notice that you may be a little off. So if I select the center, then I move the perspective, I'm not exactly at the center, I'm a little lower than I should be, but that should be fine for the sake of this video. It doesn't matter where it spawns. But anyways, so let's learn about some shortcuts, and some handy shortcuts that you're going to need. Now, a lot of stuff you could do in this program does involve the keyboard. So, for example, if you need to rotate an object, you would select the object first by left-clicking on it, and then press R. Now you can see that I could really rotate this object in any direction that I want. But let's say that I only want to rotate this object on the Y-axis, so it's not flopping around like this. Press R, then Y, and you'll see that you can only rotate this object on the Y-axis. And this is the same thing for the X-axis too. So R, then X, and then you'll see it only rotates in the other direction. Now don't forget, because you're in a 3D pane, you also have the Z-axis. So press R and Z, and so that's the third way that you can rotate an object, and this applies to all objects. Okay. So the next button that we're going to experiment with is scaling, and to scale something is to make it bigger or smaller. And you can't really think in a way where you could only scale just a specific object. You could scale a vertex, a side, a face, a particular part of an object. You can scale anything as well as rotate it. But I'll show you that in a little bit. But for now, just press S when you select the object, and you'll see that it's scaling evenly, either bigger or larger. Now, if you press X and Z, or S and Z, excuse me, you'll only scale it on the Z-axis. And same thing with the X-axis, so S and X, you see it's only scaling on the X-axis, and S and Y. Okay, so hopefully by now you've learned that you could really use kind of like a shortcut key at either Z, X, or Y to manipulate how you want to either scale or rotate it. Now, the next thing that we're going to learn about, let's undo all of this so it gets back to normal, is about extruding. And the extrude key is E. Now, if you press E right here, you see that nothing happens. The reason nothing happens is because you need to be in a different view. And right now you're in the object mode, and you can tell by looking at the very bottom over here Let's change that to edit mode. So click on it and then go to edit mode. Now, if you don't want to just use that menu there, the shortcut key for edit mode is tab. So if you click tab, you're back in object mode. Click tab again, you're now in edit mode. Now, you can see a bunch of these lines, and these are all called vertices. And just for the sake of, I guess, teaching you guys for now, let's switch to faces view. And you know you're in faces view when you have a bunch of little dots on each of these faces. And you'll be able to select specific faces that you want to work with. And to get to faces view, at the very bottom there are these three buttons over here. If you really just put your cursor over it, it'll say face select, and that's the one I want you to be in. Now you'll also notice that the entire object is highlighted. We don't want to extrude the entire object, it just wouldn't make any sense, but for now I want you to press the button A. Now what A will do is select or deselect everything that you have. So if you'll notice, you press A, then A again, then again, then again, and so forth. You're deselecting and reselecting everything. Now, because you're in faces view rather than object view, when you select something on the 3D pane, you're selecting whatever the heck whatever mode you're in. Because we're in faces view, we're going to select a face by clicking on it. So left click on something, and you'll notice that that face alone will be selected. Now, this is where the extrude button comes in handy. To extrude something is to make it longer, make it shorter, and kind of like stretch it out a bit. And if you actually see how it works, I'm pretty sure you'll get the idea. So the easiest way to demonstrate this, click the very top face of our cylinder and press E. Now, something had changed already, so go ahead and move your mouse upward, and you'll know that it is stretching a bit. Okay, and you can do this with anything. So select a different face, extrude it out. Another face, extrude. And another face, extrude that out. And you could even extrude extruded objects. So as we know, we've already extruded that. So let's select the side face, extrude that. Select the side face for that one again, extrude it out, and so forth. Okay, so now we have a weird looking object, which is cool, I guess. And you could use a combination of both extruding, scaling, and rotating all in tandem with each other. For example, if you selected the top face, you extrude this upward, and then you press S to scale, and let's scale this inward. It becomes somewhat of a cone. Now, you could then extrude this again, of course by pressing E, and just extrude just a little bit more, and then scale upward by pressing S, and let's extend that out. And as you can see, we have a satellite. Yes. Yeah, satellite. I'm going to call it a satellite. Sure. So very cool. You can then, if you press R, you'll notice that you can now rotate your extruded object. And you can do this with really any face, but of course it's going to really distort the object, so try not to mess up too much. In case you do mess up though, you can always undo everything that you've done, and that's with Control Z. But let's say if you mess the undo up and you do it too much, you could press Control Shift Z to redo. It's not Control Y or Control R or anything like that like it is in Windows. So hopefully you picked up a few skills from this already. You should have learned how to create an object, how to scale, extrude, rotate on the Z, X, and Y axis, and you should at least have enough to create something with it. Later on I'll eventually show you how to render, but in the next video let's work on an object that we could actually or I guess could recognize, and I'll take any suggestions if you would like. Let me know how it goes.